I've seen all the Oscar-nominated movies this year except for one, so I thought I'd give a spoiler-free impression of the movies that I saw in no particular order. I'll start with Anatomy of the Fall. This movie I found completely riveting. It felt so raw and so real, with a mystery that kept you invested in every word that was spoken. The scene with the husband and the wife arguing, where he's recording their argument, that was intense. And I thought the courtroom scenes were really interesting in a way that my American mind was not used to. It's not what we usually get with our, typical uh, courtroom drama movie scenes. And it just kind of it extended and it went on and it painted the entire picture of the film. So it was a new take on that for me. The editing was fantastic. The kid was great. He seemed like he was pulled straight out of 1975. I just thought everything about this movie was brilliant. Barbie and Poor Things I'm going to put together because I haven't really seen a lot of comparison of these two movies, and they have to go together because Poor Things succeeded in doing what Barbie couldn't do, and that was to create a character who transforms herself and transcends what the men and their world impose upon her. So in retrospect, I felt like Barbie was kind of like feminism's pop song. Everything needed to be explained in as brash and explicit a way as possible, with repeating choruses just in case the movie wasn't hammered home enough. Maybe a key modulation just to bring the chorus home that much more explicitly. But Poor Things was, instead of a work of art, it was, if Barbie was a pop song, Poor Things was a symphony. It was a complex and dynamic composition of what it would be like for someone to be stripped of the conditioning of patriarchal binds. So we're given something seemingly impossible and something deeply philosophical. That is an original expression of a pure woman. And by pure, I mean one who's not defined by adolescent patriarchal programming. She's not just liberated, but liberation itself. Left to her own wiles, ingenuity, and fearlessness, she finds her own way through the world and then owns it. It's clear to me now why Emma Stone was nominated while Margot Robbie was not. The latter's role feels, by comparison, objectified, gazed at, while the former has an undeniable spirit, unencumbered by corporate spectacle. And it's really odd to me to see writers out there who think that Bella Baxter is a male fantasy, when instead she's the character who is undeniably herself. The costume design, the cinematography, the set design, the art direction, I would just be thrilled if this won every category it's nominated for. It's such a weird and just wonderful world for what I feel is a truly empowered character. Past Lives, it's a movie that hits close to home for me as the white guy outside of language, which was done without rendering him as a functional trope, which you see too often. I really don't like movies that depend on cell phones and Skype calls like this movie did. It also plays out pretty much as you would expect it to. But those problems aside, I thoroughly enjoyed it for what it is. It's kind of an old-fashioned human drama with what I found to be a French aesthetic, while also being very Korean and very American. American Fiction was another enjoyable movie that hits close to home. It's my profession. Jeffrey Wright was really funny. Sterling K. Brown deserves an Oscar for supporting. There were some great scenes, real heart. Monk having to peer review his own Sellout is, I think, a work of scriptwriting genius, if you're into academic worlds, that is. I thought the ending was weirdly meta and reflexive. You see this done sometime. I'm not going to spoil it, but just to say that this has been done before. Just write an ending, please. The Holdovers, this could almost be paired with American Fiction since the protagonists are so similar in their attitudes towards their profession. But the subject matter surrounding them is completely different. I thought Paul Giamatti, like Jeffrey Wright, was just great. Both of them wonderfully droll. Davine Joy Randolph will probably win for Best Supporting, and I think she deserves it. I enjoyed it. Killers of the Flower Moon. Okay, this is an odd one for me. Was it good? I guess so. It's good in the sense of it's a Scorsese movie, but it didn't really do anything for me. With this kind of subject matter, I thought was interesting, and the class divide and the racial divide, and the colonial aspect. But it kind of just took that as a given, and these characters otherwise play out what is a pretty typical Scorsese gangster movie with a criminal collapse. I think I'm just getting a little tired of Scorsese. I didn't like The Irishman. I feel like he's doing the same movie over and over and over again. He's been doing this for a while. De Niro was De Niro. Leo was good, but he was Leo. He's a very good actor. Lily Gladstone, she spent most of the movie being either vaguely smug or lying in bed being drugged. I don't really understand her nomination. She felt oddly anachronistic, and for that reason, it felt more like a performance than a disappearance into a role. And I just don't see the praise being given to that performance. I thought it was a good performance, but rather standard. Maestro, I know this is getting a lot of bad press, I guess. I'm not quite sure why. I don't really follow the press. But I was really impressed with what Bradley Cooper did, both as a director and an actor. Technically, it's a cinematic marvel. It's just an impressive feat of cinema. And I think maybe one of the reasons why this is being pushed aside, forget the backstage Hollywood stuff, but we've seen this story done many times recently in different kinds of movies. But still, I think it deserves its accolades. Even with Emma Stone's transformative performance, I think that Carey Mulligan would be my pick for Best Actress. And I think Cooper would be well deserved too. I thought she was fantastic. Zone of Interest, the praise this movie is getting is kind of escaped me a bit. I appreciate the formal experiment, and on that level, it was fascinating and disturbing. The community of sound theorists have been asking for a film like this for a very long time. That is, the ability for the sonic element of a movie to create a whole other movie running alongside and interdependent with it and with what we see. So I do hope it wins the sound category. It probably won't. Hollywood doesn't understand sound unless they have something to look at, sadly. But the main problem for me in watching this film, it was the last of the films that I saw, is there's no attempt at empathy in this film. Instead, we're asked to sympathize. And maybe I'm just not in the mood for sympathy this year. It only reminded me of how power has transformed the victims of the past into the genocidal oppressors of today. And it's just tragic. And so I don't feel in the mood for sympathy right now. An empathetic film I might have. Oppenheimer, okay. I can't anymore. With every film he makes, my distaste for Christopher Nolan grows to the point where I've sworn off ever seeing another movie of his. I find him soulless, bereft of passion, overly dependent on explanation and exposition, all while masking his work in unnecessary and unpoetic obfuscation. I just feel like he has literally nothing to say, even though his films talk so damned much. So I didn't see it, but I'm sure it's going to sweep the awards.